Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Mitch here, your social media coach and a trainer. Saturday, we are back again with Catch Up with Mitch. This is our episode 5. And I have a very interesting guest with me, Omprakash. Hi, Om. Om
Hello.
and I know each other for almost 2 decades.
Yes. Wow.
It feels like that, yes. But yeah, we know each other for almost 2 decades now. I remember in 2002 when I moved to Bangalore, my first job, and that's when I met Om. And Om, there's only one thing that is always, stuck to me. There's so many more things, but there's one thing which is always stuck to me is the time. When I met first time when I met Om, was he had come to the office for a meeting. He had a meeting with the MD at about 3. He landed there at 2:45, and he comes and says, "I have a meeting, but don't worry, I'm 15 minutes early." And that's what has stayed with me, and sometimes also help me keep that in mind, especially when I have to meet Om, that I have to be on time. I cannot be delayed because whatever said and done, Om is always before us. If it's a 5 o'clock meeting, he'll have the exact calculation where he's there at 4:50. I don't know how he does that, but probably in the conversation today, we'll hear more about you, Om. So welcome, Om, to Catch Up with Mitch.
Thank you so much, Mesh. And when you were explaining and introducing yourself and us, I was thinking, wow, how some friendships are really cherished. Thank you for the opportunity. Amazing to be here with everybody who's on live.
Thank you, thank you. So I mean, as I said, I've known you for so many years, and I've seen you doing different roles on that. But probably I know you only from the time that I met you.
Right.
But what is that Om all about, or what did Om do before that?
Okay. Now I'll have to recall my resume. Okay. Well, life started with quite a few surprises, Mesh, because when I completed my graduation, this was in 1994, something told me that my mathematics paper didn't go well. I've always been bad at mathematics. And so I thought I might have to redo that exam. So I thought, let me not waste time and get into a job. And that's when I got into my first job, which was sales. And I think I was very fortunate, honestly, to be mentored by some experts in sales. It was a multinational company which came down, and I would think it was sheer fortunate entry. Spent about 6 years in sales and thoroughly enjoyed. And while I was doing so well in sales, I also realized that I'd transitioned into training. I used to train people. It was not probably, it was never officially called training, but I used to share what I did. My manager used to encourage, buddy somebody, etc., etc. And it just so happened that, training became a default fact of my life. And that's the early days of when I recall. And then when you talked about 2002, that's when I took a break to do my MBA, right? Post graduation, executive MBA from the SA Tapney Institute. And it also gives me an opportunity to answer your question about time, right? I still remember Mr. S.A. Chandran, yeah? He was the dean at that time, and he's a great personality for the people who are in Bangalore, has a lot of experience. We were very fortunate that our batch had exposure to him. And he gave me only two things, right? And his principle was everything in a place for everything, right? If you sit in a chair, you get up, push it back in its place because it belongs to a particular place. The second thing he told was 2 minutes ahead of time. Doesn't matter where, 2 minutes ahead of time. And for me, that was a powerful lesson way back in 2002. And it significantly changed the way I seem to operate when it comes to professional side and also my personal side. I for sure know in my house, be it my Rashmi, my wife, or my parents, for that matter, my son, sometimes they feel, oh, you're overdoing this. Because even if it is like a wedding, I remember very recently we went for a wedding, and I said the card says 7 o'clock, so let's go there at 6:50. And you know what? It's really bad sometimes because you go there and there's nobody, you're the first person. So sometimes I know I overdo it. But from a professional point of view, it's certainly been a wonderful experience to just have certain disciplines which you can really enjoy, and it's just professionalism. I love it. I really love what I do on that aspect.
Yes. Thanks, Om, for that. And as I said, there are a lot of things that I have learned from you. And one of them is definitely this. When I'm meeting you, I'm very careful about it. But otherwise, in my work also, I'm very cautious about it. That a meeting, a call, a training program has to start on time,
Yeah.
and I'm there on time, if not 10 minutes earlier like you, but on time,
Yeah.
So thanks for
Lovely.
that. So you started your career in sales, then you took a break, did your MBA, and then I think you again started something in, gone back to sales and operations and things like that, right? So
Yes.
how did the life change after taking that break?
Good question there, Mish, because when I think about how I transitioned into, so majority of my life, 17 years, last 17 years of my life has been in the banking financial sector, right? So as soon as I finished my MBA 2002, I really wanted to get into a full-fledged company, multinational, explore something else instead of sales. It so happened that I got a small assignment, more like a consultant, and it was back in sales. So that was really something which happened. It was not planned. It was just a default. I didn't want to keep myself, free. Even during the executive MBA days, I remember I used to work for a software company. In those days, the web-based products were really popular. So I can't remember taking a break from working, even during MBA, we doing something or the other. So I think 2003, that's after 6 months of the consulting assignment in sales, 2003, I got into HSBC, and that's really where I spent about 10 years of my life. When I went for the interview, I was very clear I wanted to be in training. And this is where I feel how life, brings surprises your way, right? I met the center manager who's the CEO of that time would come, and he said, Om, you come with a lot of people experience. Right now in Bangalore, we need managers. We need manager operations. If you want to do training, you have to go to Hyderabad because that time training was centralized in Hyderabad. And he said, why don't you start here in Bangalore, get used to operations, learn a little bit about ops, and then you can always consider training in the long term. For me, Mish, that was probably one of the best decisions. Although I procrastinated, but it was the best decision made because until that, honestly, I didn't know what banking meant, never thought about it. Me and commerce were anyway apart. So those 2 years gave me a lot of insights about the entire banking operations. Had an opportunity to do some migrations, went to the UK. So I feel completely blessed that whatever decision which was taken away from my comfort zone had its benefit. So sometimes when you take a leap of faith, I think if you see the positive side of it, I think I was just fortunate to see that. Exactly after 2 years, I moved into what I really always wanted to do, which is training. That was in 2005 and never looked back. It's been training throughout. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really where it is. Of course, I've moved to a couple of roles after working in the back-end operations. I was fortunate to get a role in Singapore to work with the bank, but again, still in training. So I had a exposure to really test my skills beyond just in India and within the APAC region. Did a couple of programs in the UK, in the US. So it was really fortunate. Let me say that way. Yeah? It's really fortunate that. Yeah.
So I have Kavita who's saying hi, Prakash. So
Hi, Kavi.
yeah.
Kavi is my cousin, is based of Chennai, so it's lovely to see her come there online.
Yeah. So I've done recruitment for about 10, 12 years, and we always had our business heads coming in saying that if it's a operation role, I want someone who's done operation throughout their career, and when it's training, I want someone who understands the entire training and studied
Yeah.
all of that and things like that. So for you wanted to get into training, you ended up in operations, and you said that was a great phase of your life because
Yeah.
gave you the entire exposure to
Yeah.
the industry and role, and then you were fortunate enough to come back to training within 2 years.
Yeah.
So How was it then? It was very difficult to, for people to accept you who's coming from a sales operations to training, or it was easy? How was it?
Yeah. No, again, great question, because you're helping me think of really my past days and how the whole thing really transitioned, right? So operations, when I took the decision, it was really taking a calculated risk, Mish. But I knew, of course, HSBC as an organization was growing, so I thought it will happen someday. But I think that the reason I say that was the best decision is because I spent 2 years in operations, I really understood the business. And then when I moved into training, relating to the business heads, relating to what's the needs of the business. So it was just not a training cap, but when you put on your business cap, you're able to provide better solutions. So for me, anybody who understands the business and spends some time in it, right, seem to be able to provide better solutions. So I think I was one of those examples where, because I was in operations, because I had some great network of business managers, when I moved into transition, when I moved into training as a transition role, it was easy for me to speak because we spoke the same language. When they say, "Oh, this is the problem with the training," I probably almost could relate to the problem statement. So when you relate to the business problem statement, your solutions are that much more real.
Yeah.
And I think, and that stayed on with me for a long time. So even now, as an entrepreneur, when I have conversations with, my clients, and when I use the business language, it makes a tremendous difference in the way they seem to accept your solutions and design.
Yeah.
So I think some of those decisions really pay off well.
Yeah. So I think sometimes there are opportunities that come our way. We are not too
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
whether it's the right one or the wrong one. But I think as an individual, we need to be open.
Yeah.
The opportunity is knocking your door. So
Yeah.
I've had the experience of that. I have done sales to recruitment and then landed to social media, which I had never thought. I had thought probably recruitment and training is something that I want to do. But 15 years down the line, I'm doing something else exciting, good. So about 15 years in the L&D role with different organizations, 3 organizations.
Yes. 15 majorly. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah. So then how did this entire thing of leaving a corporate job and starting on your own happen to you?
Okay. I was anticipating this question. I'm glad it came. Well, I must tell you, it was an unplanned entrepreneurship. And the reason I say that was my last role, I was in Chennai. And there were two things which happened at that stage of my life. One is it was a responsible role as a head of a large organization and responsible for over 22,000 people. My family was in Bangalore. There was one incident in my personal life. My father, he went through a small bypass issue, and I was in China actually doing some work, and that was one turning point because I was really not there when probably I should have ideally been there if I was accessible to him, right? Everything went well. My sister, my brother, a lot of family support was there, so nothing major. God's grace, everything went well. But I think that stayed on for a bit in terms of would it have been nice if you were there around, right? And I knew that the moral support would make a tremendous difference. So somewhere I was kind of in and out. I knew I could come back to Bangalore anytime because the organization had a setup in Bangalore and they're more than willing to, move me to Bangalore when the right time comes. But I think there was also, you get certain callings in your life, right? At some stage, you speak to yourself and sometimes you hear a lot of voice in your mind. What you're doing, is it time to go out? So it was one of those moments, which became more stronger than it was in the past. I always knew I would retire as a consultant, as a coach sometime in my life, but maybe I would have been in the corporate for another 5, 6 years, come more comfortably, really honestly. If it was a choice, maybe that would have happened. So this incident probably allowed me to revisit how soon do I want to take a leap, or what is the time? So sometimes those incidents happen in your life when you really have to think at what stage, what do you want to do now? So that was one. Second, I also realized that when you climb up the corporate ladder, there are certain things which you go through and you hit a certain threshold. It could be a conflict, your own personality, conflict with the values of the organization, conflict with XYZ factors, right? And you are tolerant. I was one of those, I would say, I was about to say boys, but the truth was I was one of those guys who was quite tolerant in the organization, right? I mean, okay to manage it. It's okay, put it up, it'll go through. I realized that one stage, especially when you go higher in the ladder, your tolerance can give you stress. And I definitely went through a certain amount of stress. And that's when I realized, do I really want to go through the stress any further? Or do I want to manage it differently? Yeah. I'm sure if I'd stayed back, I'd have managed it differently. But then with this personal incident, I think it was just a call. I had lovely support. In fact, when Kavita said hi, she was one of my welcome sister there in Chennai who made me feel at home. So there were a lot of friends, fantastic environment. So there was so much of support. But ultimately, your inner calling, I think, was strong.
Sure.
And then I came back to Bangalore, and still there was absolutely no plan. And then I had a great well-wisher, another friend, who said, it's time for you to take strong and bold decisions. And I can't, tell you enough how I remember he was speaking to me across the table, and he said, you should do this, you should do this, you should invest XYZ rupees to buy your brand name. And I'm thinking, I don't even have a job, and you want me to invest money to buy a brand name and build. So for me, none of these was really in my radar. I'm because I've never come up with my family. We've never been a business family, right? We always played it safe just because of the upbringing. So first of all, to come out of the role itself was a big thing, and now you want me to invest money to buy something without even knowing what the certainty is. But some of those conversations really made me a little more strong. It was like testing myself. If I didn't make those moves, I probably wouldn't have risked, taking a little more stronger objectives in my life when it comes to being an entrepreneur. So I only have so many people to thank around me who really are an inspiration. Mitch, you're one of them. You know that. How many conversations we had. You've been out. I always wonder where you get that energy from. But yeah, lovely to have great well-wishers around me. Yeah. So Scalist wouldn't have happened without at least for sure 2-3 people who really have made a difference in my life. Yeah.
True. I remember that, when the discussions were going around and, you had no idea, but the person who kind of, triggered all this in your head,
Of course, yeah.
The conversation sometimes makes a huge difference,
Yeah. And I'm feeling so sorry to interrupt. I'm feeling so tempted to use the names and to share my gratitude, but I've really not taken permission. It's live. So I'm trying to kind of say, okay, shouldn't I? But at this point, I'm not going to take the name. But if they're hearing me, probably they will know how much gratitude I have for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's been 3 years to Scalist, a little over 3 years.
It'll be 3 years in April, actually.
3 years in April. Okay.
Yeah.
So how the journey has been?
I want to use the word blessed. Seriously blessed.
That's good. And
most
is blessed.
Yes, thank you so much. Blessed because what started as something which is completely unplanned, something which I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I'm good at, but I didn't know where I need to take it. I didn't know probably how I'm going to take it, right? So it just started off with a couple of assignments. And again, some of the well-wishers said, you're out, come and do some work for us. Yeah, it's absolutely like that. So I keep thanking my stars that, especially, and I'm really happy to share this, right? Whenever your ex-colleagues or ex-managers call you to do some work, that means you've done something right in your life in the corporate world. So for me, it was purely them, some great friends who we worked together, my manager from other organizations said, come and do this. So I think building that goodwill and doing the right thing and creating a expertise in certain area, I think will always support you when you want to shift what you want to do. I think that for me has been a great blessing. First year, of course, was a couple of assignments, and then next year it was some more. This year, I must tell you, I'm sitting on 80% repeat customers, which means really I'm not really uh, selling myself hard, selling Scalist hard, but I think we did some fantastic work, and the clients call us again, and I think that's really what makes it wonderful.
Yeah. And there's one more person, I think we both know her, Sahana Shetty.
Yeah,
It's so wonderful to hear your journey and best wishes. Hey,
thank
Sahana,
you.
good to see you here. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So, when we
thanks,
start
Sahana.
something on our own, as an entrepreneur, there
Yeah,
is something that we have a goal or an objective we start with. Sometimes we just start on a blank page, and
yeah,
then we kind of move around on the journey. It has happened with me when I started Socialite. There was a particular goal or a task that I was looking forward to, and
yeah.
then when I started talking to more people, though I had done my homework of 6 months and things like that before starting this, but in the 3 years, 4 years, I have seen how things have evolved around it. So, how it has been with you at Scalist?
Well, the focus has really been to drive value, Mish. I mean, honestly. So I think committing to what the client really wants and giving your best has been the only place where you put a lot of energy. Again, I'll say I've been very fortunate. I have a designer who designs my program, who comes with a amazing research mentality. That's not my strength. So I leverage her and her abilities. So finding those small partnerships, people who can contribute to your success, so that you don't have to do everything yourself. A common thing which I've heard, and I also am a victim of it, is when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you're alone, you're the postman, you're the courier boy, you're the cook, you're everything, right? Admin, everything, including client facing. In my life, I think I try to minimize some of those, right? I really have somebody who I can look up to for design of the program. I have somebody who can probably once in a while interact with the clients. So there are certain areas which I feel very comfortable to, delegate where I can, and focus really on where I know I can contribute the most, which is really facilitating programs and coaching. And that blend has really given me the space to continue to focus and improve.
Mm.
When you told me, especially in the last 10 months, I don't think I've ever invested so much of time in myself learning, because the work I do was never virtual in the past. It was always, face to face, and that was my preference. And thanks to COVID, of course. And the first 6 months, I think I must have attended close to, if I can count, maybe 50, 60 invites of free webinars all over the world, odd timing, just to learn, just to get a feel of what is this? Is it going to happen, not going to happen, etc., etc. But last 3 months has been absolutely busy, calendar packed, trying to make the most of it, learned so much, and now applying. And we're in a happy space, absolutely in a happy space. So again, goes back to the word blessed,
Blessed. Yeah.
considering there is so much more, one can contribute in the field.
Sure.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I know what Scalist does, what you've been doing, right? But for our viewers, I would like you to spend some time talking about what exactly do you do at Scalist.
sure. In fact, the tagline we have is accelerating human
I love
potential.
that tagline.
Thank you. And the fundamental belief is, Mish, all of us are blessed with certain minimum skills. I'm using the word minimum because all of us are blessed with something which we are damn good at. And I for sure know that sometimes in the kind of work we do and the kind of pressure we have around us subsides our originality, right? Truly, the fundamental philosophy of Scalist is to just help people come back to their original self, just rediscover what they've got within them already, and then maybe nudge a little more to push them a little more to do better. So 70% of the work which Scalist does is in the space of leadership development. So we look at high potential performers, middle managers and above in organizations. We work on very specific behavioral intervention, be it executive presence, be it managing stakeholders, being influencing at a different level. So that's one area. The remaining 30% is really around consulting and coaching. So we look at individual coaching where it's required, and we're doing a couple of, as we speak, we're doing a couple of high-end consulting assignments where we will help organizations look at employee engagement scores and completely do a 360-degree internal review of before they launch their new objectives for next year. What is the pulse of the organization? And we build training and development plans around it. So because what one thing corporate has taught me is you can't go, although it will sound right with a vanilla offering, you can do so much more better by keeping it more focused.
True.
So we are currently helping a few organizations review the leadership, review the pulse engagement, and then see what kind of development interventions will probably yield much better results. And that's so fulfilling, honestly, that's so fulfilling. So in most of the cases, I call ourselves as we partner with the HR and L&D. We want them to absolutely feel good about what they do, and Scalist is one of the catalysts to help that happen. And I think for us, it's fortunate that being in L&D, you know how important it is to have the right partners who understand, who value the organization, who understands the pulse of the people.
Yeah.
So I think having spent 23 years in the corporate has given me that experience, and I think it's been a wonderful partnership. I mean, all the clients I work with, HR and L&D, we share such a special bonding that we almost know how resonate with each other on what is needed. Yeah. Again, the term blessed.
It's great that we are blessed, Om, and I just hope that we are blessed always, and we have our assignments flowing in for both of us and for everyone who has taken this leap of, leaving the, the corporate job and starting something on their own. Before we kind of sign off, if you had to, probably give one or two learnings from your experience or your career to someone who's looking to, take this plunge, from a corporate life to, doing something where we are finding a second calling.
Okay.
What would that be?
Great. I was again fortunate that I had somebody ask me these questions before I took the leap of faith. So I'm going to share best practices from others and some lessons from me. I think it's important to make sure you don't put yourself in a stressful situation when you take the leap. And stressful situation can come from personal reasons or financial reasons, right? I think it's very important for individuals to evaluate that moment when they take the leap of faith. I think most of us know that we keep saying you should at least have a 6 months of financial buffer, etc., etc. Whether it's 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, I would absolutely think as long as you have those 2 or 3 clients who can be there to give you a start, don't look for them after you start. I mean, you need to build your network, you need to have conversations, and they need to trust that you will do a great job for them. So you should do your work. It's like warming up before you want to run fast, right? So I think you need to do your warm up when you really want to take a leap of faith, because that warm up will give you enough confidence to probably start the race. So in my case, I think it was very important for me to make sure not just the financial part of it, but also I had those 2 or 3 people who trusted me. They say, come and start for us. And that's all was really needed. So that's one. Second, I think you need to be very clear with which area you're going to really succeed without struggling, right? Because your first few assignments need to be so in line with your strengths, because that's going to give you so much more confidence, because it will only reap success. So today, when I told you 80% of my work is repeat business, that's only because of the first few steps with the right client, with the right work, which really went on so well that, it just rolls again and again. I would say these 2 would probably be at the top of the list. And third, I think continue to learn. I mean, I keep telling for the last 6 years, although I've been a professional coach, even now, as I speak, I was very fortunate to one of my colleagues, a very good friend, who became part of a coaching community. We're going through a 7 weeks rigorous coaching program. So continuous learning is something which I think all of us should really keep it in our mind, whether we are an entrepreneur or solopreneur, whatever you want to call it. So I think these three things should definitely be a great must to have when you take a leap of faith.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Om. It was lovely having you here and a great conversation. So, for all the viewers, if you have the ideas and if you're looking to scale them up for your people, for your organizations, log on to scalist.com. That's the website. Omprakash is available on LinkedIn. Do ping him. Happy to help. Thank you so much once again, Om.
Yeah.
And here, Mitch signing up from Catch Up with Mitch, and I'll see you next week again with another entrepreneur. Sorry, you were saying something, Om.
Yeah, Mitch, I just want to thank you for the opportunity and thank everybody else. I love some comments, a lot of common friends, which is fantastic. So, such a pleasure to have all of you listen to this, and I'm sure we'll get to catch up soon. And please, of course, reach out if I can be of any help, and would love to say hi offline. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye.